What does high score mean? New high score, is that bad? What does that mean? Should I break it?
Hello everyone, and welcome to Veteran Gaming Raid Shadow Legends. I am Aaron, and welcome to the first installment of the beginner's guide that I am making for Raid Shadow Legends. Because Raid Shadow Legends is a very complex game. There are a whole lot of pieces to it between heroes, dungeons, PvE, or player versus environment, PvP, player versus player, right? There are a ton of elements to this game, and that complexity is what keeps this game running and so popular and keeps players involved. So it's a good thing, but as a new player coming into the game, it can just be so overwhelming to look at this chock full screen. You got tournaments and events, and your portals glow, and then you go into battle and you have all these different options. So I'm going to break down essentially every part of this game into different chapters, because otherwise this video would be an hour long. Because like I said, this is a complex game. So I'm going to break them down into different chapters. We're going to talk about each individual element that makes Raid great. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, make sure you leave them in the comments section down below, and I promise I'll try to get to you. Or check out another video that I have posted if I have that chapter up and running. Hopefully you'll see it on the channel. So the very first thing we want to do, of course, is to make sure we are starting with the best possible start when you play Raid Shadow Legends, which first of all includes clicking either on the QR code or on the links down below, because you're going to get some free goodies for your account. Don't just start playing with no added benefits. If you click on these links or the QR code, then you get benefit, I get benefit. You're going to get, you know, epic champion, epic skill book, some chickens, that kind of stuff we'll get to later on. And then I get the support, which is all I'm really asking for. So make sure you're getting some free goodies when you download the game. The next thing it's going to ask you to do is pick a starter champion, and you want this guy right here, the Dark Elf Kale. He is essentially unanimously the best starter champion in the game. He helps out in pretty much every area of the game. Very strong in beginning game, mid game, and late game. You can't go wrong with Kale, so make sure you're grabbing Kale. If you've already started and the other ones aren't, you know, if you picked one of the other ones, that's not that big of a deal. It's not like you have to restart the game necessarily. Kale just is the strongest starter. So if you're watching this before you play, make sure you grab Kale. All right, so the first chapter in this beginner's guide is going to be over heroes themselves, right? Because at the end of the day, this is a hero collecting strategy game. So hero collecting is a huge part of it. As you can see here, my account isn't 4 months old yet, but I already have all these champions. So it's important to know what you're looking at when you're getting these champions, because I haven't even scratched the surface, right? There are hundreds of champions in this game. They're constantly adding new ones. They're constantly adding new factions. So there are a lot of heroes. So it's important to know how to get them, and when you do get them, what you're looking for and what makes a good hero and what makes a bad hero. So let's go ahead and start first with how you get heroes. You get heroes a couple of different ways. The way you're going to get most of your heroes is from these summoning shards. As you can see here, there are different kinds of summoning shards, and you see the numbers next to them, which means it's easier to get some than others, obviously. These mystery shards will get you common, uncommon, rare heroes. Ancient shards, rare, epic, legendary. Voids, rare, epic, legendary. Primals will get you rare, epic, legendary, and mythical. And then sacred shards will give you epic and legendary. So if you're not familiar, the different tiers of heroes are mythical is at the top. There aren't very many of them in the game. They're actually recent additions to the game. Then you got legendary, epic, rare, uncommon, and common down at the very bottom. And as you pull up this big old I button up here, it will actually show you your chances of pulling what type of hero. So you don't have very good chances of getting legendaries, obviously. Sacred's the top up here at 6%. They do have 2 times events, and that's really when you want to pull most of your shards. That way you're doubling your chances of getting legendaries or epics depending on the event. But it's going to show you exactly the numbers it's running up here, so you can decide if you want to pull and when you want to pull. The other nice thing is they do have a mercy system engaged, and it shows you everything about it right here. So the longer you go without pulling an epic from Ancient or Void, then you're going to get one, or legendary, mythical. They all have their different mercy systems, right? So the longer you go without pulling one, the better your chances until you finally are guaranteed one. And then once you get that one, regardless of where you get it, whether you get it on your 5th pull or your 200th pull, it's going to reset that mercy timer again. So if you get it early, it just resets your mercy timer. If you get it late, it's going to reset it again. So it's a lot of luck involved, obviously, but that's the way it goes. There are also some chances to kind of select which hero you're getting. It's not totally random. As you can see here, there's a progressive chance up right now where you can click on one of these champions, and then it will give you the more you pull, the more chance you have of getting that specific hero. There are also just regular events where it's usually like 25 times chance to get a specific hero or specific heroes from the event. So just pay attention to what the chances are. Try to never pull unless you see this summoning stone here really glowing like this, where you see something highlighted here, a progressive chance, a 2 times chance, something like that. Don't just pull anything other than mystery shards unless there's some kind of bonus added onto it, if you can help it. I typically don't pull any of these shards, Ancient, Void, Primal, or Sacred, which is behind my head here, without at least a 2 times chance to get the heroes. Otherwise, the chances are just super low. As you can see here with the numbers, 0.5% chance on Ancient and Void. Even if you double that to 1% chance, is significantly better. So that's the way the shard summoning system works. You can also fuse heroes. Fusing heroes involves taking a group of weaker heroes and then creating a stronger hero. So, as you can see kind of behind me here, I'll move me again. I can fuse these 4 heroes into this one champion. So these are all rare heroes down here, and then this is an epic champion up above. Try to remember that these rare heroes will be destroyed in the process, which, frankly, this Justicar is not that good of a hero, and War Maiden is a fantastic hero. So just because you have some rares going into an epic, it doesn't always necessarily mean that you're getting a better hero out of it. But the fusions, kind of, some are special, they come and go, some stick around, like Relic Keeper, but you're going to want to try to work towards these because you're getting some really good heroes out of the top, and Relic Keeper, while not that good, is one of the missions that you want to complete. But I've heard amazing things about the mythical hero up there. You're going to get some legendaries along the way. Rosin is very good, so pay attention to your fusions also. Fragment summons, next tab down. These are heroes that you can essentially build by getting shards through different events and PvP and that kind of stuff. Just to show you, I have 72 of 100 for Drexlar. When I get to 100, I can summon him, and he actually comes from the Tag Team Arena PvP, which, don't worry, I'll have a video on all PvP stuff later, but you go into this bazaar here, and then you can buy a shard a day. So theoretically, you could get him in 100 days. And there are heroes that pop up from time to time in different tournaments and events. Like I was 5 short of getting Husker Rule here, which still hurts to look at every time I pull this up. But these are events that are going to come and go. Some of them stick around. Yannicka is out of clan activity. Helma is from the Doom Tower. So some of these are permanently there. But like White Queen Ancora, she's from an event going on right now. I'm not going to get her. So I'll have to trade in those shards later, which are for some rewards, but not that great. Remnant summons are something you're going to get from the Cursed City on hard, something only late games are going to worry about. We're not going to worry about that here in a starter guide. And then you do have these Prism Crystals that jump up from time to time. Again, you win Prism Crystals from either tournaments, events, or you can purchase them. But the good news is, if you summon from these crystals, these are only epics and legendaries available. So you have they're basically sacred shards, which are the hardest to get because you're guaranteed an epic or legendary. It's just typically these summoning pools here, they come from only one of the factions. So these are all Knight Revenants, which if you're full on Knight Revenants, maybe you don't need this one. But if you're looking for your faction war team down the road, maybe this is for you. So those are the main ways that we're going to get heroes. You can also win some tournaments and events. It's pretty rare. It's very difficult. I'm not going to worry about it in a beginner guide. The only other way you're really going to get heroes are from the campaign. In the campaign modes here, when you click on each particular level, you can see miscellaneous drops right here. Like you can get the rare Valerie, you can get the rare Conqueror from this node. If you go to a later node, then you're going to get Houndspawn or Diabolist, and you're only going to get rares. There are no epics or legendaries in any of these zones, but you can get some decent rares. Like Diabolist there is pretty good. Templar there is not too horrendous. There aren't a ton of strong ones. Like, that's a terrible one. I don't even remember his name. Sorceress, meh. So you can get some from those early game, which are going to help out. All right, into the character screen here. This will be the last kind of portion that we talk about the heroes in the game. As you can see here at the very top left, you can filter by looking at everybody, or you can filter individuals to look at their pretty faces. Again, you can sort them a variety of ways. By rarity, you have the legendaries up at the top, followed by epics, and then rares, and then so on. But you can also sort essentially by their power, how often they're used. You can sort several different ways. But the one I'm going to start with, I think, since we already talked about rarity based on our summoning shards, is let's go ahead and talk about affinity. The easiest way I can show you the affinity is if we go into the dungeons here, and don't worry, I'll talk about the dungeon events in another video. But right up here, anytime you see a versus screen in this game, you're going to see that diagram. This flame up here is magic, the lightning bolt is spirit, the skull is force, and then the triangle is void. And it's showing you what direction they are more powerful / weaker against. So magic up here at the top hits spirit harder than anybody else. Spirit hits force harder than anybody else. Force hits magic harder than anybody else. And that does go the other way around. Like, magic is obviously just weaker against force. Void is in the middle because Void doesn't care about anybody else. They do the same damage. They take the same damage from everybody. They are out of that whole system. But that is really important because you're going to come up against different bosses. The bosses themselves even have an affinity. So this is a magic type hero or boss. So you're going to want to use as many force heroes as you can because they're going to have a chance to hit harder and do more damage. So affinity absolutely matters, and you're going to want to have a good amount of different affinity heroes because they're going to help you in different ways. Also, you're going to come up later on to things like Cursed City that only allow you to use certain heroes. Like, let's see here. Let's just pull up, yeah, right here. It's going to give you conditions on who can actually enter. So this isn't my full roster here behind me. This isn't my full roster of available heroes. It's only certain people that meet that criteria. So the longer you play, the more it's actually going to help you to have more affinities, more factions. That way you can use them in more events, which again, part of the complexity of this game that really keeps it interesting, makes you build your roster more and more and use more heroes of the game, which I think is really fun. So there we go. There's our affinity. Let's go ahead and talk about faction. Faction doesn't seem quite as important as it actually is most of the time. If you get other games like Marvel Strike Force or Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, right, it's very important their faction or what crew they come from like just Star Wars, right? If they're Sith or Rebels or Jedi, it's important that they stick with those. In Raid, it doesn't really work that way. You don't get specific bonuses from using more players from the same faction. The only place you really need them is in the faction wars here, where obviously in the Orc Crypt, I can only use Orcs. And it is important in the long term to get these faction bonuses down because as you see here, you're going to win shards and eventually legendary heroes, these epic skill books. So you get good rewards. So you want to make sure you're saving and using and leveling up heroes that are good per faction also. It's not like they don't matter in the game, but also you will need them in faction wars. So a little bit of an interesting twist on the faction there. I think it's kind of nice that you can play with anybody from any faction in most game modes because that just gives you more opportunities. That's that complexity I've been harping on. More combos equals just more ability to have fun and kind of mix and match some teams. You're definitely not going to see the same teams over and over, which is why when you go into Arena here, you're going to see just a smorgasbord of people. None of these teams look the same, whereas if you go into Marvel Strike Force or Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, you're going to see essentially whole sections of meta of the same team over and over, and that's really not a factor here in Raid, which again is something I really enjoy about Raid. So let's go ahead and talk about the individual icons here, because you can get some hints from the icon. So I'm just going to go ahead and talk about Elva here, just because it's kind of closest. So Elva, the top right, that little running man, and as you can see here, Ultimate Death Knight has the shield, and Blade Master has the the sword, those are giving you a leadership aura indicator. When you go into your skills here, those heroes have an aura. They can be put in as a leader to increase, this one says increases ally speed in battles by 19%. Ultimate Death Knight increases ally defense in all battles. So if they have all battles, it obviously works everywhere. Elva's will work everywhere, but you're going to run into some, let's see, who has a specific one? Here you go. Ursula the Mourner increases ally speed in Doom Tower and Doom Tower alone. So it's a massive speed bonus, 24%, but you only get to use it in one particular arena. So make sure you're paying attention to that. But anytime you see a hero up top, know that they can fill a leadership void and will give you an aura bonus as long as it's specified that it's in that area. You get the bonus, all right? Then obviously at the bottom left here, you see their affinity. The bottom right, you see what level they're currently at. 60 is the max. And then up top here, you see these pretty stars. And if you come down here, this is the standard color of star. And then as you ascend them, you're going to get this color. Hopefully you guys can see that. I'm a bad weatherman. Like Sorceress here, or Eris. You can see she's 3 out of 4 ascended. So Ascension is more powerful, and I'm going to get into Ascension in a later video. So we're not going to worry about that too much right now. But just know that that means that they're going to be more powerful. And then if you see, like Apothecary here, these 3 stars in the front are the even brighter color. That means they have soul stones in them. They have either a perfect or a split soul, which again, I'll get into later. I'm just telling you right now that that is an indication that they are stronger. So if you're playing Raid and you see heroes that look like this, you know they're not even ascended. If you see them looking like Ultimate Death Knight up here, like, oh, okay, they're a little bit more powerful. And then once they start building that soul level, you know that they're going to be real hitters. So make sure you're paying attention and seeing those stars in the indicators given. The last one I want to talk about here on the character page, like Haikatoon here. You see that fist she's got right there in the middle of her little character card? That means she has a blessing. And that, again, is an indicator from those soul stones, those brightly colored stars. And, like, this one is going to strengthen your team's aura. So she has an aura of speed. The blessing is going to increase that, which is really nice. So, again, it's just another indicator that somebody on the other team is even stronger. Or if you're looking there, you can know that you also have an extra bonus on that hero that's stronger even than the Ascension and the Soul Stone and all that. So as you can see here, we haven't even gotten into gear or masteries or any of that kind of stuff, skills, and you already have several indicators of how strong a hero can be and several different ways that you can level up a hero to make them stronger. And I'm going to make my own video on the Ascension and on the Soul Stone, so make sure you check those out if you have more questions or want more information. But for right now, just on the basic character overview, we're going to leave those for right now. You also have champion vaults, so you have, as you can see here at the very top of the screen, I can hold 170 heroes, but on my champion vaults, I have a master and a reserve that I have 50 and 70 more, and you can buy either by gems or by your silver currency, more slots for them also. So as you play the game longer, you're going to need more and more hero slots, and you're going to need to buy those slots, but that would be something I would say put into that as you go. It's not necessary right away. Other things we want to talk about on the screen. The champion lore is not that big of a deal, but it's kind of interesting if you want to read about some of your heroes and the story they came up with. Pretty cool. Reviews. I do want to talk about reviews real quick because these are good general indicators. They're on 1 through 5, but these are just from the general public. So if somebody has a hero geared poorly or just doesn't know how to utilize them properly, then you might get a higher or lower rating. So I would take these with a real grain of salt. If you're looking to really know how somebody feels about that hero and whether it's strong enough to put into and you're just not sure, I would say check a professional website or other resource, another video on YouTube. That way you know what you're getting into, because these are just everybody in the world, and you never know if people are going in there and just rating crazy high or crazy low to mess with other people, or just not caring, or don't have them built right. There's a lot going on, right? Recommended artifacts, I would say the same thing. Those are coming from the game, and they're pretty basic. I would say check out a professional site or a video on how to build your hero to get the most out of them. I would take those all with a giant grain of salt. Up top here, on the other side of Kale, we have his level, his rarity, right? You got legendary, epic, and then rare. And then you have what kind of hero they are. Attack, support, defense. Who else we got? Attack, support, defense, HP. So you have different types, and that is an indicator of what stats will build their damage. Like on Miseliac Priestorn here, one of my absolute favorites. He is an HP-based champion, which is really cool because he actually increases his damage based on his HP, which it shows right here. If you go into the skills tab, which we're going to talk about at depth here and again, here in a minute, damage based on HP, damage based on HP. So when I give him artifacts, like his chest and his gloves here have HP percentage, because not only is that helping keep him alive, but it's actually increasing his damage, which is really, really, really cool. Like defense, Ultimate Death Knight here, his damage is increased by his defense. So on his chest plate, I have defense percentage as his main stat, because that's actually going to help keep him alive, and it's going to help him do more damage, which is really, really cool. Set info are these indicators right here. If they have a set active for gear, it's going to show you what they are. Resilience and perception sets on High Katoon there. I'm gonna have a whole nother video on gear, and that is vital that you guys watch that if you don't know what you're doing, because it's very counterintuitive that the individual pieces, the stats on individual pieces are more important than sets, which is, like I said, very, very counterintuitive. But I'm going to say it again. The individual stats are more important than the sets, which is why on like some of my legendaries here, Rathalos has some, Ultimate Death Knight only has one, but Elva has none. Rondo has one. A lot of my heroes have one or none. And that's just the way it is. Like Frozen Banshee here has none, just because that's how it worked out. I don't have the gear to support getting her the stats and the sets, so I picked the stats. And that's something you're going to run into, and you're going to hear it a lot. Stats over sets, stats over sets. But that'll be a whole separate video. You can also favorite and then lock them so you don't destroy them. And you can mark them in different areas, which is kind of nice. Just filtering stuff that helps. The tavern is just a link that takes them to the tavern. We're going to talk about that at length in another video, because you can do all kinds of fun stuff to upgrade your hero in the tavern. But that's not what we're talking about right now. We want to know what makes a hero good and how you can tell. That way you don't have to look up a professional resource if you don't want to, and you can get a general idea just by looking at their skills of what they are and what they can do. So, first thing you're going to see here is a description of the ability up top. If it places any debuffs, like poison sensitivity on that one, or poison on this one, and then at the bottom, you're going to see if the skill has been leveled. As you can see here, if it's that bright white, it's been leveled all the way. And if you have somebody like Lady Quillen here, if it's kind of grayed out, I have no skill additions, no skill books put into that. And it'll also say over here, 1 of 5, 1 of 5, where if you go into Apothecary, it's 5 of 5, 5 of 5, 3 of 3. So it's going to tell you what the skills are currently leveled to. And it is really important, especially for heroes that place a debuff. Because as you can see here on Kale, on his first attack ability, you're going to get buff debuff chance plus 10%. So when you read through, you initially say, okay, attacks one enemy has an 80% chance of placing a 2.5% poison debuff for 2 turns, damage based on attack. Okay, but when I have him fully skill booked out, that is going to take that to a 100% chance of placing a 2.5% poison debuff for 2 turns. So, really, really important that you're looking at if they have skills that can be raised, and if they are raised, and if you want to put into them. Because not always do you want to complete every single skill. Like as you can see here, Ultimate Death Knight. I'm never going to give a book to this. I just don't need his buff debuff chance plus 10% on that. I would rather put it into other abilities. But these, to get to that -1 cooldown on all of them, I had to put more skill books in to upgrade those skills. Upgrading skills is completely random. We'll again, talk about it later in another video, but it's completely random. You can't control it. So you want to make sure you're only putting in as long as you need to. Sometimes you'll get lucky, and you'll get 5 of 5 on this ability, 3 of 3 of this ability, and on this one, 0 of 5, and that's fine. You can put those legendary skill bucks into a different hero. So make sure you're paying attention to what the skills are, and especially as you're a new player looking at a new hero that you got, you want to see, okay, can this debuff, like we were talking about Kale earlier, can this 80% chance go up to 100% chance? Or is it going to start at 50% and goes up to only 75? That's really important for how strong a hero can be, because a lot of the weaker heroes cannot upgrade those skills to get to that 100%, which it really limits their viability in a lot of content if you can't get up that high. Another thing to kind of pay attention to is you can see here, there are different levels of buffs and debuffs. So 80% chance of placing a 2.5% poison debuff for 2 turns. Let's see. And then here on his third ability, has a 40% chance of placing a 5% poison debuff for 2 turns. So for poison debuffs, there's actually a minor and a major. There's a 2.5% chance and a 5% chance. So that's important to note also. Does a hero only have the weaker version of debuffs, or does a hero all have the strong version of debuffs or buffs? You can also see plus defense has, okay, 50% decrease attack debuff. There's also 25% chance, I believe. So you're going to get different levels of the abilities. So familiarize yourself, or you can always look up whether it's a big version of the debuff or the little version, because that is also going to play a major factor in how strong that particular hero is. So those are the skills. The aura we already kind of talked about a little bit, because this is an all battles one, but some of them only apply in certain areas. So make sure if you have a hero with a debuff right here, critical rate in Doom Tower battles by 24%. Those leader auras, make sure the all battles are obviously the best, but sometimes you're going to get a bonus. Like this Doom Tower by 24% speed buff is way better than this 19% in all battles. So it's, again, a nice thing to say, oh, okay, now I have my speed buff leader for Doom Tower. Now I have my speed buff leader for Arena. Really, really important to pay attention where they have their aura leadership. And then, of course, Blessing we touched on, and I'll make a video on later. It's just an extra passive bonus that's really nice once you get a Soul Stone into the hero. All right, last thing I'm going to touch on briefly, because, again, this will be a whole nother video down the road, are the Masteries. These are all passive bonuses that you can get tacked on to your hero that are going to help out. Just some examples here. Increases damage inflicted to targets with less than 40% HP by 8%. The big boy down here, 50% chance of ignoring 25% of the target's defense. For skills that ignore defense, this is 25% in addition to the amount ignored by the skill. And then you have offense, defense, and support trees. It is really important to know that you cannot put skills into all 3. You get 2 out of the 3. And it'll give you a warning when you start to put points into it that once if I build offense and then start to go into defense, it'll say, hey, this is going to lock out the support tree. Are you sure you want to do that? So know that this is a completely filled out tree. You cannot fill every single area for every hero, and you cannot fill all 3 zones either. So passive bonuses, really, really, really important to making your hero stronger, and you're going to want to do that, obviously, but know that you're not going to fill that whole thing up. So there we go. The last thing I want to say about the heroes, again, has to do with the debuffs and buffs. It's important to add somebody that can place all kinds of debuffs. You want some poisoning heroes. You want some turn meter manipulation heroes. You want some HP burn heroes, right? There's a bunch of different heroes in the game that do a bunch of different things. Hold on to some of all of them. And real quick, the example that I'm bringing that up, Curse City here. This, where are you at? Is it that boss? No, it's you. This little frost spider here. I cannot defeat it without an HP burn hero. These heroes can kill these guys a ton of times, no problem, but then this one just comes back to life. It resurrects unless it's killed with an HP burn debuff on it, and I don't have one. So I cannot get by this level just because I do not have an HP burn hero. So remember, just because a hero may not be the absolute strongest in a certain area, if they place a certain buff or debuff, hold on to them because you may need that down the road. This game does an awesome, awesome job of making you utilize your entire roster. Here in the Doom Tower, you can use whatever hero you want on these levels, but these secret rooms are usually only rare or epic heroes. Like this one, beat this room using rare champions only. So you're going to want some of the stronger rares and epics. So make sure when you draw a hero, you're really paying attention to their abilities, what they can do, and don't hesitate to use a professional resource if you need to. Check out YouTube, check out Hell Hades' page or Ayumi Love. There's a bunch of them out there. Find what works for you use those resources because there is a lot of information in this game, especially when you're new and just getting started. Use those resources until you can build your own knowledge base, and then you will feel much more confident and comfortable while playing this game. All right, checking the notes. Think we got it all? Again, if you have any specific questions, comments, concerns, throw them in the comments section down below, or just check out my channel. The videos will be coming, trying to explain every single aspect of this great game. And if I don't get to it, make sure you let me know and I'll make a video for it. So there you go. Make sure you guys are getting some free goodies. Check out the QR code or click the links down below. It's a win-win. You get some stuff, I get your support. Make sure you're checking those out if you're going to start playing Raid. If you enjoy the video, if you have any feedback whatsoever, please give me a big thumbs up. Leave it in the comment section down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss upcoming content. And as always, have fun. Good luck.
So I got that going for me, which is nice.